Good morning to everyone on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Good morning to you as we start now our Galilee Baptist Church Men's Ministry, Men and Boys Boot Camp. That word boot camp is an acronym for because of others' testimonies, Christ answered my prayers. So that we believe as the men of Galilee that through the power of testimony, we begin to grow and become better men of God through the testimonies that God has given each one of us through his grace. Of course, it's by his grace that we are who we are today. So again, good morning to everyone. I need you to do me a favor. Before we start our virtual boot camp, I need you to get all of the men, all of the boys in your house, get them around the phone, around the broadcast, so that we can build together and share our testimonies and learn more about being better men and better boys for God. I would also like you to share our broadcast as you're looking at us. Make sure that you share our broadcast on your page right now. Like it and share it for me, please, so that we can continue to spread the word and perhaps bless somebody that's a friend of ours on our page who may have a child or just may need some encouragement today as a man. So again, good morning to you on this Saturday. My name is Brian Wilson. I'm the pastor here at Galilee Baptist Church. And every other week or every so often, we have our virtual boot camp where we want to continue to mentor men and boys by sharing our testimony again. So please like and share. And on today, as always, we have the leader of our men's ministry boot camp, Brother Stephen Grant, a deacon at our church, as well as the principal of Green Oaks High School. And today, our special guest for us this morning is Mr. Nathaniel Adams, Cattle Parish School Board Supervisor of Attendance and Welfare. We welcome him today as well. It's good to see you, my brother. And we look forward to this conversation. Again, please like and share. And at this moment, I'm going to turn it over to Brother Stephen Grant so he can facilitate our conversation. If you have any questions and comments, please type them in respectfully. Please type them in and we will share them on our platform on this morning. Brother Grant, take it away.
All right. Good morning to everybody out there. Listen, once again, we have an outstanding topic that we want to try to utilize and we're going to try to grow. We need to grow not just us as men, but we need to grow our young boys. We need to grow our community. And these are some topics and subjects that we must address. We cannot continue to kick the can down the road and not address these issues. We've got to address these issues because it's affecting not only individuals by themselves, it's affecting the entire community. And when our community is infected in such a way, it makes it very difficult for those who are growing in these communities to really come out and be productive. So this morning we have one of my, he's really a good friend. He's an alumni of Grambling, so you know he's all right because he's a Gramblinite, Mr. Nathaniel Adams, who is our supervisor of attendance and child welfare for Cattle Parish Schools. I'm going to let him introduce himself. Tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about your journey, Nate, what got you to the position here, because we're going to be diving deep into some topics that might be a little uncomfortable, but they're necessary to have. So take it away, Nathaniel Adams.
Good morning, everyone. I am Nathaniel Adams of Cattle Parish School Board Attendance and Census Office. I am originally from Shreveport, Louisiana. I am a graduate of Captain Shreve High School, class of 94, class of 99, graduate of Grambling State University. I am local. I taught at Green Oaks High School for several years, was an assistant principal at Lanier Middle School and at Booker T. Washington before moving to the attendance office. The attendance office in Cattle Parish Schools is responsible for registering and enrolling students, offering the social services of the district, linking parents to the community. We're over discipline and truancy in the parish.
All right. And just so that everyone understands, today's topic, we're talking about really the causes and the effects. Truancy is something that is really a huge issue for not only just one or two schools, but we're talking nationwide the truancy can really have a huge impact, not only on the school, but the entire community. And in this regard, sir, we're going to just kind of talk and discuss some topics and so forth. We ask that you type in your questions or your concerns, and we'll be able to hopefully get to some of those in the meantime. So when we're talking about truancy, and just so that everybody has a sort of an understanding, I'm just going to give a basic definition when we talk about truancy. But truancy, excuse me, is defined as an unexcused absence from school, and it also applies to students who are chronically late to school. A lot of times people don't realize that you constantly being late to school is truancy and so forth. But now the challenges of truancy is now double because nationwide schools are also virtual. We have virtual attendance and now we have the traditional attendance. And so you're dealing with two different things, and both parents of each of these type of students need to understand that the truancy guidelines and laws apply to them and the impact. So one thing I want to read, here's a stat that really blew my mind. And it says that during 2007, 2008, nearly 30% of middle school students were chronically absent, and 20% of elementary school students missed at least 1 month of school. And this is according to a tool of assessing truancy risk among school children, predictive and contract validity of risk indicator surveys. So, Mr. Adams, let me ask you quickly, what do you believe are some of the triggers for truancy?
Okay, well, now in the state of Louisiana, truancy, a child is considered truant when they have missed 5 unexcused days or late to school. So on the 6th day, they're considered truant. Truancy usually is a result of some other problem. Problems such as mental illness, poverty, uh, school behavior, bullying. Those are some issues that will cause children to be truant from school. Homelessness, that is another one. This year, it has been complicated because not only are we dealing with those who physically attend school, but we've added a new parameter dealing with those who are truant from attending school virtually. And reasons we have been given that these people are truant could be something such as their internet connection is bad, unreliable internet up in our rural areas, such as Northern Caddo Parish or in the extreme southern parts of the parish. Some have stated that their learning modules are not working, and some of these are legitimate. And other times we're finding that the reasons that they are saying they're truant is not truly legitimate. But oftentimes, what my office does is go out to find out why the child is truant and what we can do to solve the problem. I like to say that we eliminate all excuses. That way, the child can go to school, and if they don't, then we have other things that we could do to assist the family in making sure that the child is educated.
You said something that I thought was really important when you talk about truancy and talk about the home life. And I guess a lot of people just really don't realize how critical it is that students have as close to possible stable environment from whence they're coming from. I think anyone who works in the school system, especially in public schools, and whether you're in an urban environment or a rural environment, students that come from sort of stable homes typically don't have the issues that we see with some of the other kids who are a little more truant. Um, and I know several factors, and you talked about some of them, but many of the students, oftentimes who are truant, are coming from broken homes, as we define broken homes as not being a traditional mother father. Some of them are raised by grandparents who are a little bit older and so forth. And so that typically is what we see a lot of times when I have a student who's having some issues. Oftentimes today, when I'm calling home, I'm not talking to the actual paternal mother or father. How is that? How does that create issues for you guys when you're trying to really assist with that for homes and like that?
The home And what we define as family is and can be different for many students. Traditionally, you're correct. We define it as a mother, a father, and that is who is raising the child. We have grandmothers, grandfathers. We have single parents raising children now. We have aunties, uncles. We have situations where the mother may have had a friend or father had a friend, and now this person has taken on the child because the parent might be ill or something like that. And all of these people are attempting to raise the child and educate them. Uh, in situations like that, we oftentimes refer them to the McKinney-Vento department of the parish because we are supposed to talk to the parent. The parent is defined as the person who is on the child's birth certificate or who has custody over the child that has been awarded by the courts. Oftentimes, especially during this day and time, we don't have that type of documentation. We've had children whose parents have passed away and a sibling is raising them. And all of these factors contribute to why the child isn't going to school, how they perceive other children. Sometimes it even affects how the school perceives this child right here. And with that, we're the ones who are having to mesh it, put it together, and make it where the child can be the most successful with whoever's raising them.
And I know oftentimes economics plays a large part. I think statistically, I think it's proven that students who are from some of the lower economic, socioeconomic backgrounds, typically we see a lot of issues of truancy because of those factors, all of those other factors that you talked about, that makes it extremely difficult for students. And we know that CATO has a number of different programs and so forth that can assist parents who are in those situations. Or, and actually, let me rephrase and say assist parents can assist the caregiver. And I think that's probably more an appropriate term that we should have is who's the caregiver? Because oftentimes people come up there and they have no custodial rights, they have no parental rights, but they are providing the care for the child, and they are the ones who's making sure the child gets to school. So what are some services or programs or things like that that Caddo Parish offers those caregivers?
We have the parent educators there through Title I. They can provide books, textbooks, anything that the child needs to be educated at the house. Their website is actually a very good resource. We have the McKinney-Vento office. The McKinney-Vento office is a federally funded program that the children and the caregiver go through that links them where they can get services such as birth certificates, they can get clothes, they can get school supplies. We also have a partner community agency called TASC, and TASC helps us address truancy. The DA's office helps us address truancy. One of the assistant DAs will, if there's a problem with custody, help us get the paperwork that we need to make sure that the caregiver has the correct documentation to be able to speak on behalf or as the child's caregiver in the school system, as well as in any other type of situation that they might be in. Would like to also say we've had parents, for instance, in a non-traditional way, whose children were truant that they had no idea about. You were talking about stable environments. I was just thinking about one where I had a mother who went to work at 6:30 in the morning, and she had middle school children. She would wake them up, get them ready to go to school, and she would leave and go to work. Well, oftentimes, because they were up so early, those children would go back to sleep and miss the bus. And the school had no idea about it. No one knew about it until it became a problem where the children had missed over 10 days of school. It had been referred to my office. We were about to take them to court when we found out that this was the situation right here. So there, and I wanted to just throw that in. Sometimes it's an environment that you would think the child could be very successful in. And for reasons like that, truancy would be, I'm going to say, a community issue, not just the issue within the home, but the community has to be concerned with it. And once we go a little bit farther, we'll kind of discuss that in ways that the community can help address it.
Yeah, and so I'm glad you said it because that's really the next segue. What can or how important is it that the community steps up in this situation? Because we know oftentimes, especially here in Shreveport, people hear a school and they automatically think of the community or vice versa. When oftentimes the school does not actually, represent. When I mean represent, it is not an indicator of how the school is. And oftentimes I think people hear a community and some of the negative things there and assume these things are there within the school and then vice versa. So tell me how important that is, or what can community or those within the community can do to be a little more involved in helping the schools that are in their neighborhoods tackle this issue of truancy.
I would say, first of all, watch, look for the children in your neighborhood. Okay. Again, as I said previously, having virtual education has created another dimension. The Caddo Parish Schools Attendance Office welcomes community input. We have a web tool called Let's Talk. It's located on the district webpage. If you believe a child is truant or there are any other problems in the home, go ahead, log in, and send us that information. You can click on the attendance tab, and it will go to 8 different people within my department. And I like to say anything that comes through the department, whether it's related to our department or not, the buck stops with us. We're the ones, if it is not for our department, we will find out who it is and see that everything is addressed. People are often concerned, they don't want their names affiliated with making reports. They can report the information anonymously. We've had parents report there are school-age children at this house, and the parent does not send their children to school. There's a lot of traffic at this house during the day, and we believe that these children should be in school. Any of those types of observations that community members make, go ahead and report it. We will go out there personally. We will send people from the DA's office out. It is all confidential, and it is to the point where we can't even tell the person, if the person leaves their name and they're not a parent of the child, we can't even tell them how it was addressed. We just tell them that it has been addressed, and we do what we can to link that family to whatever services they need to get the child back into school. Would you like examples of what we do to get children back in school?
Yes. I was just about to ask you, what are some things that, because that's what we need. People need to know those various things that we actually do.
Okay. Some people are legitimately homeschooling their children. And if we go out to the house, we ask for that type of documentation to make sure that the child is being homeschooled. If the child and the family, or if the family is willfully truant, we like to use the word willfully truant, meaning all excuses have been eliminated for them not to attend school. We refer them to the district attorney's office to go meet with the judge so that they will be court ordered to go to school. If they're declared a family that is in need of services, they will be linked to a truancy officer who we oftentimes in the school system says a probation officer, but it is not truly a criminal case. It is a case where we're giving them services and someone is monitoring that family closely. They will link them, if there's homelessness again, not only to cattle homeless resources, but they will link them to resources that are within the city or within the juvenile justice system. If there are mental health issues, they will be linked to services that will help them get the help that they need in order to do better. If there are drug issues with the child, There are different programs that the child can go to. If there are issues with the mother or the father, we can do that. If it's domestic abuse, we can link them to shelters and other agencies that will help with that situation. Again, you eliminate the excuse, and then the expectation is this child will go to school and learn. And that's what we do.
I know oftentimes I will refer parents who notify me that, the issue they're having with their child, or sometimes the child will tell me the issue that's going on with the parent, and I will refer them to the FINS. Would you talk a little bit and tell everybody what FINS is and how they kind of operate to help assist families?
Sure. FINS stands for Families in Need of Service. It is one of our community agencies that help us address truancy. And again, when we say truancy, truancy is usually what we see on the outside, but there's usually an underlying cause for this truancy. I named some of them just previously. FINS is who will help address those needs right there. Some of our schools have problems with, and oftentimes, let me back up. When you hear the words truancy, when you hear the words families in need of services, oftentimes people get a vision in their mind that it is certain schools, certain communities. Truancy is all over the parish. Anything that could happen in the city or the parish of Shreveport will find its way in schools because children are members of the community. So any school within the parish will at any time have a FINS officer assigned to a child. They will have a supervisor of child welfare and attendance coming in to work with the child or the family, or an attendance facilitator, or any other person who can offer social services to that child. And FINS is, like I say, that is one of our resources. It's one of the, if you want to talk about tiers, and tier 3 being the highest, FINS would be the tier 3 resource that we offer. Before we send or refer a child to FINS, we have done everything else. The school is your first level. That's the attendance clerk, the principal, the counselor. Those are the ones who initially start noticing there's a problem. And what we do after they tell us there's a problem, usually our facilitators will go and call, find out what's going on, try to offer them other services through outside agencies, refer it to a supervisor of child welfare and attendance. A supervisor was supposed to meet with the parent. And then after that, after we've done all of that and exhausted all other resources and means that we could do, we will refer them to the DA, and the DA takes them before the judge. They have people come into the house, do studies, and if the child and family are in need of service, the judge will then require that they be adjudicated to FINS and start getting those services.
And one of the things that I think is immediately impacts truancy of students struggling with that, or even just a severe tardiness to school, is their academics. And then it sort of begins a domino effect once the age starts being an issue. Talk about just what is the district's approach, policies as it relates to students who start to become overaged. They're overage students. You're talking about someone who may turn 16 before they get into ninth grade, or they may turn 17 before, while they're in the ninth grade. What is typically, and we know these are severe, and these are, like, I guess you would call red alerts on this child, but what's the district's policy and approach to overage students, and, especially those adversely affected with truancy?
The district, first of all, every child is important. So we do try to educate them. When we find that there's a child that has reached age 17. Well, I'll start with age 16. 16 who's might be in the 8th grade or going to the 9th grade and will turn 17, that may age out, meaning not graduate before they turn 20. We start looking at other opportunities for them. Uh, it is the high set that we refer them to. Okay, the high set is formerly known as the GED test. And we have many programs around the city that offer tutoring for the child to pass the high set. Oftentimes, I tell students who come to my office, this is a big step for you, but it is something that you may need to do. And the reason it is a big step for many students is because if they don't finish the high set, they will not have a diploma, nor will they have the equivalency of a diploma. And I like to tell them, then you're willfully letting people tell you your worth. Okay, see, if you have at least a diploma or a high set, you can get other credentials and make money based upon your talents. If you cannot get the basic credential, the diploma or its equivalency, oftentimes you cannot get those other certifications. So people will tell you, oh, I know you can work on a car very good, but instead of paying you $70 an hour, I'm going to pay you $30 to put this part on my car. Or I know you can do hair very well, but instead of you making the money that a licensed cosmetologist will make, I'm going to pay you $30 right here to do my hair. So it is an option. The high set is an option. Let me go back to that. It is one of our last options, but let me explain the criteria that we have to go through. And I'm gonna just briefly go through it because I would never want a parent to think, well, my child doesn't meet this, so I won't refer them to this program. A child can be referred to a high set is if they're parenting, and this could be a male or female child. That means they have a child. If there is a chronic mental or physical illness. What is a chronic illness, mental or physical? Something that will not allow you to attend school regularly. It could be a family or economic hardship. Now, that is defined by the state as one parent being catastrophically disabled or deceased, and the child has to work to take care of themselves. Or the child can be adjudicated or living in a residential facility. That means they could be awarded of the court or living in some type of facility that will not allow them to attend school regularly. Now, the programs we have, for instance, like VOTEC or Southern University or Bossier Parish Community College, as well as Goodwill, they also offer job skills. Those are very important because studies have been that children who do not receive their diplomas oftentimes do not make the best people to go to jobs. They miss the jobs like they miss school. So those programs right there supposedly give the children skills to help them to better, or to, I'm going to say, refine them, help them work on those skills right there to make them more employable. Is 17 with fewer than 4.5 credits, and they exhibit behaviors that cannot be corrected. We oftentimes refer those children to programs. And if they're 18 with fewer than 10 credits, we will refer them to that program, those types of programs as well.
And I think it's important that everyone out there understands that there are times that, we have a conversation with students all the time about postgraduate, post-high school goals. And it gets down to that part where you're looking at students whose age is starting to become a factor because they don't have the credits, as Adam just said. And those are the toughest conversations because oftentimes the students and sometimes even the caregiver doesn't really have the vision that you're looking at. They make the assumption that you're saying that the child is unable to learn or unable to do that, and that's never the case. And I want everyone out there who's dealing with students like this is that you have to start to really think and see what the struggles are, where the kid is at. And the child may be As you said, 17 already, and they're going to be turning 18, and they're still in the ninth grade, which means they have less than 5 credits towards graduation. It is time to really start thinking about what's the alternative to a traditional education. We already do that when students come in and they get placed on the core four program diploma versus the Jumpstart. That's already in place, but those are both designed that they're going to graduate on time from high school and that they're going to be able to go, if they choose to do so, to college. Of course, the Jumpstart, you can go directly to a 2-year school out of high school, but you can then transfer to a 4-year school. So it just gets to the point once the age and the lack of attendance to school starts to impact academics, that these conversations have to be made. They have to be made. And so I'm saying to all caregivers, all parents, all students, do not feel like there's a self-worth. This is the school and the school system still saying that you have value and we're going to give you an opportunity to go and do this. And that's important.
I will,
And you can go ahead and expound on it, but also talk to them also about what's the program we have where not what is it? What is it called? They can get their diploma while they're actually working on possibly a skill. What's that program? I forgot the name of it. Pathways. Yeah, Pathways.
Pathways is a charter school in Caddo. It's a voluntary program. They can work. It's more of the way it was explained to me. Pathways is a home study program. Teachers do not just sit up in front of the children and impart knowledge. They are the facilitators of learning. Okay, it's a new concept. It is a different concept. The children work at their own pace. They're given objectives, goals. They're given work to complete. They come back in, the teacher evaluates it, assesses them, and they're given more work. Because they only have to go to school possibly 2 days a week, these children can also get jobs. They can go to V.O.O.T.C.A.M.P, for instance, in one of their programs and start working on career-related skills. And eventually, when they graduate, they could also have some skills that they can use to help them be employable. And that's one thing I would also like to add. Those who are watching, if you are capable of it, mentor a child. It doesn't not have to just be your child, but one of the strongest things that you can do to make sure that a child is going to school, that a child is receiving an education, is establish a good, positive relationship with them. Naturally, children are pleasers, even those who are rebellious for one reason or the other. If that person is important to them, they will try to please them. And with that, do what you can to help that child right there to finish school, to get an education, to get a trade. If you have a trade that a child could be employable with, that they would need some type of mentoring and you know the ins and outs, hook the child up. Make sure that that child is getting what they need so that they will be successful right there. So that's something I just kind of wanted to throw out there.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad you said that because I have some of my parents who bring a person up there and they sign off and they put him on their demographic, say, Mr. Grant, he's just going to come periodically check on John just to make sure this and that. I'm giving him approval and access to it. And I welcome that, especially the more I can get men who are willing to come in, because that has had an impact. And I do see those young men in particular do make a change. They make a turn because someone cares about them. So yes, I totally agree with you. The more we can do that, and I think it's important. The Bible speaks of where there's no vision, the people perish. And that's an important aspect. I think mentoring gives these students an ability to start to develop vision for their lives, and when they can get focused on on a vision that they have of being great, they really move really well. One of the things that you just mentioned, I want us to touch on this, and we're talking about that because one of the negative things that comes oftentimes out of truancy is delinquency, and delinquency can oftentimes lead to much dire negative effects for the student, which ultimately has an impact on their adult life. You kind of talked about it earlier, but share with me how truancy, delinquency, and then eventually this adult life all sort of merge out of truancy.
I grew up hearing the idle mind is the devil's workshop. And I'm sure many of the people my age heard something like that or
Yeah.
similar to that. What we like to say in the attendance department is if they aren't going to school, they are getting in trouble. Okay. Someone's going to educate your child. Okay. Someone's going to educate the children of the community, whether it's a school system and what we're trying to teach and enforce with them that is positive, or whether the streets educate them, which is something that we don't want, that's negative. Truancy can lead to delinquency because if the child is not in school, then who's educating them? Okay, where are they learning to survive? Where are they learning to work? Think about it. It's not from what we're trying to teach, it's something someone else is teaching them. Okay, so that becomes a roller coaster right there. Oftentimes, when a child gets sent to the juvenile detention center, it might be for something minor the first time, but then that door is opened up and they will link up in here and make friends with other children. And it's not just the juvenile detention center. That one isn't as severe as some of the ones that are located within other parishes. And the child will come, and I've seen it because they come to my office and talk about their friends from other places. Do you think they're discussing the most positive things when they're in those places? No, they're not. They're discussing what they did. They can tell each other how not to get caught next time. And with that, that turns into what they will be or end up doing in their adult life because they don't have an education. They haven't learned life skills that will help them to stay out of the system. So they end up going back to the system and through the system over and over again.
And one of the things that I would suggest and encourage all adults, regardless of they are, is to um, any young people that it's in your neighborhood, it's in your family, that you constantly keep encouraging them to work through things because kids do deal with a lot of things. Oftentimes, the things that they have to deal with are put upon them by the adults in their lives. So I would say, be very mindful of what you're putting before children that they're seeing and that they're hearing or being involved with. One of the things that that starts to happen, and I'm encouraging parents to stay with your child throughout the whole process of school. Oftentimes, once they start to get to middle school, or even once they get to high school, parents start to pull away of being deeply involved, being engaged. We know on the elementary level, parent nights and engagement nights, you typically see them there for all of that. But once they get to high school, that engagement sort of drops off because we assume, well, they're old enough they can do this or that. I'm encouraging all parents and everyone to stay deeply involved or engaged with your child's school. Even if it's just simply you calling up there and just saying, hey, I can't make it up there for this or that. Let me know what's going on. How can I help? Those things really help.
Find something, let me say this, find something that your child does well, or that a child that you are looking after does well, and praise the child for them, support them in that. Go to the school and talk about that. Let the child know that you are proud of them, and they will keep doing that.
Correct. That then, because that's what we want. We want to do. Pastor, I don't know if you can hear us, but just looking at the time, do we have anyone with any questions or comments that you want to share with us before we move on? We got about 20 minutes.
No, we don't have any comments. We just have, any questions. We just got a bunch of people on greeting Brother Nathaniel Adams.
And that's good.
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah. And that's what we want. Now, listen, one of the things, and we kind of went on, I want to say this for the end, because it sometimes may step on some toes, but we talked about several factors in a child's home or personal life can contribute to truancy. And we talked about the examples of drugs and alcohol used in the home and children. But one of the things that I'm finding that's having a huge impact is that the homes are not being equipped educationally. Kids getting all the shoes and all of that. But if anything this pandemic has taught us is that the homes that are not being equipped, and I know economics plays a part to that, are the ones that are really suffering the most. So with this pandemic, I think the question of equity it has been, I think, a bright light has been shined, and that we probably all can agree that equity has not truly been applied, and we're seeing the students who are having the issues with schools for whatever reason really suffering the most. We're talking about places that don't have Wi-Fi and they need hotspots and all of these various things here. So if a parent, we're talking virtual students here now, what can parents do to try to ensure their child is attending school virtually, even though they themselves are working and can't be there at the house?
The first thing and the most important thing is to communicate with the school, the attendance clerk, the principal, the Cattle website. Again, and I'm going to tell you about the site. It's called Let's Talk. Email the school, use that link right there, and ask, how can I make sure that my child is attending school? My child is virtual. Okay. There's a link that is in each. Let me go with the learning platform. The learning platform that we're using mainly is Canvas, and they can live stream lessons through Zoom. Okay. Canvas, schools have been instructed to set up a quiz saying, I am here. And the child is to click on that every day. So you have a child who might click on that, but they're not actually engaging in the assignments. So your first line of defense is communication with the school. Make sure that you as the parent, caregiver of the child, or whoever communicates with the school to find out if the child is actually engaged with the lessons. And from there, if they're not, you might want to schedule a meeting with the school so that y'all can come up with a plan to make sure that the child is engaging and learning. If there's a problem with your electronic device, communicate that with the school. I've had parents that we've contacted, the child's attendance was okay, and the child may have had D's and F's on their report cards. And what I've instructed the facilitators in the department to do, if you come across a situation like this, go ahead and make contact with the parent, because that means something's wrong. The child can be an average student. C's are okay. C's and D's are okay. Sometimes we look at D's and say those are bad. Those are a little lower than average, but for some subjects, for some children, that might be the best that that child can do. And I'm not talking about low D's right around F's. I'm talking about borderline marginal grades. If the child is still having problems after that, and we've eliminated that there's an internet problem, there's a problem with them logging into the learning platform or something, then it's time to meet with the school, have the school conduct what we call a school building level committee meeting to address some other issues that might be showing through this digital platform that we're using. We found that some students were able to, I hate to use the word fake it, but they were able to maneuver through the system being face to face a little bit better than they could when they're online. And there are true learning disabilities that some of these children have that need to be addressed so that we can make sure that they're doing better.
And one other thing, according to the truancy is contextual in the school related problems analysis, children from lower income families are more vulnerable to truancy compared to the higher income families and who are not involved in school life. And the reason I said that is the opportunity that that was afforded some students is just simply the fact that the parent their life is so busy. They're working, they're trying to do this. So I mention that so that parents need to know, if you cannot physically be the one watching or checking on your child, see if you can designate and have a friend, another family member who will. We've got to get back to this concept that it takes a village. And I think that's what one of the things is happening. Parents are trying their best to make ends meet. But so oftentimes they're allowing the business of their life to kind of supersede that their child going to do what they say. There's so much out there, parents, that can distract your children, and it's very easy for them to pull up social media sites while they're supposed to be learning. So we need to make sure we can bring the family structure back in, where an aunt, an uncle, an older cousin, somebody is checking and making sure and reporting to you, because we do know many of our parents, they work. We got some parents work 2, 3 jobs. I got parents that we have to meet via my school app. Literally, we're emailing back and forth because they cannot work. But that works for me. That helps me get the parents' questions answered. We can check on the child. And actually, that's one particular parent, child's doing pretty good. But the point is that for those of you out there, contact your schools, talk with your principals or counselors if you're in a situation in which you just cannot get up there. I'm actually even willing to schedule to meet with some of my parents who can't. They said they only can come up I met with a parent literally on a Sunday up at the school. And so most principals, I don't know how they are, but most principals will do whatever they can when it's about the need of the child to make that happen. We're just asking that that everyone within the community, even if this child is not biologically connected to you, that do whatever you can to help make sure that these children are getting to school, or that they're being assisted and engaged in school. That's an important aspect for us. And the reality is, our communities are at stake here when we just haphazardly disinvolve ourselves in students' participation in school. It's really what happens. And we see that with high crime rates in some areas. We see it where people are just literally moving out of certain parts of town. And when they're moving, because that area is there, the schools numbers are being affected, and that eventually affects a lot of different things. So we need to make sure that we're constantly involved, that we're getting what we need done for our students, for our children. Okay. All right, Nate, I'm going to give you the last few minutes here to kind of round off or sum up everything, and make sure you also give people how they can contact you if they have questions or concerns.
Okay. Well, first I'll start with my contact information. Again, I'm Nathaniel Adams. I'm the Director of Child Welfare and Attendance with Cattle Parish Schools. My direct line, I'm giving you my direct line, is 318-603-6303. My email address is my first initial N, my middle initial, which is L, and my last name is Adams, at Cattle Schools, that has an S on it, .org. If you have any questions or concerns dealing with any services that can be offered through the educational community, contact me. And if it doesn't fall under my realm, I will get you to the person who can help you. Okay, to round off and to, I guess, bring closure to it, first, truancy. Truancy should be everyone's concern because truancy will dictate, it is not a possibility, it will dictate a child's success in school, their success in the community, and ultimately affect how we as a Cattle Parish community at large are surviving. Okay. Mr. Grant spoke about home, the home life. If you have any type of question or concern dealing with a child's home life, the first thing I would say to do is let us know. Again, we have an app if you want to be anonymous, but let us know so that we can address those issues right there. Don't make excuses for something that you question. Just because a home might look like, or you may believe that that's the perfect environment right there, there might be some underlying things, or they might be hiding problems well. Okay? The school should be the most enriching, enlightening experience that a child has, second to home, second to church, second to family, if you put all those together. The school is where the child learns, is where the child grows. The way school and how we educate has ultimately changed. You have a traditional school, now you have a virtual school. In both instances, the child should be learning and growing. If you see that there's a problem, get help. Again, contact the principal, contact the counselor. You can even contact my office and we'll do what we can to offer services. Adult delinquency, academic performance, all of those can be addressed. Mentor a child, listen to the child, watch the child, link up with people in the school, link up with people in the community, establish a network of individuals who can help make sure that your child is achieving the success that God intended them to achieve. That's it.
Listen, I really appreciate that, and I want to add to parents and before, because I want Pastor to say a few words as well. Parents, I'll say this: there is no dumb question to ask. The dumbest question is the one that's not asked. Please do not be embarrassed to say I'm having issues with my child. We're here. That's the sole purpose of our schools and our school systems, is to help undergird and grow our children. Everyone on this platform right now is a product of Cattle Parish Schools. So we want everyone to understand that. When I mean we're products, we either graduated or we worked for Cattle Parish Schools. I'm not from Louisiana, but I started teaching and developing and learning and growing in Cattle Parish. So we are all invested, and we can attribute our livelihood to being involved in education at Cattle. So this is for the community. This is a community plea. It is a spiritual, biblical plea that we are to train up our children and make sure that they have an opportunity to be the best that God has for them. So please get involved, stay engaged, and continue the narrative of growing these children. Pastor, I want to give you an opportunity to close us out this morning.
I just want to thank you again, Brother Nathaniel, for this invitation. I know I'm as LaMayo, man. Thank you for coming on. It was educational for me, so it was more so about me learning the inner workings of how you guys deal with truancy. And I do want to say publicly, man, that Cattle has the right guys and Brother Grant and Brother Adams in whatever positions you all serve. And thank you for pointing out that we are all products of Cattle, because that just lets every child know what they can be if they just utilize the resources that are around them and the community. So again, thank you so much. And Jacqueline Murray said, thank you all for caring. I want to thank you too for caring. Y'all are the right men for the jobs. Thank y'all so much. That's all I have. Thank you again. Please, again, like and share if you haven't done that already. Please like and share our broadcast. We'll be back. We'll be back again for our Men and Boys Virtual Boot Camp. This is something that is ongoing. You can look back at past broadcasts on our page if you want to see some of our past virtual boot camps. And also, we're on YouTube at GBC Shreveport, and you can see the broadcast there as well. Again, Brother Grant, I want to thank you for moderating, making sure we have guests and the substance of the people that you have invited on this platform. I appreciate that. You guys just keep doing what you're doing, and I want to thank you for what you're doing for Caddo Parish, because my children are part of Caddo Parish now as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Y'all have a good day, and go watch you some football.
Yes, yes.
You got 4 minutes. See y'all. Have a good day.
Y'all take care.
All right.